Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart for those of you that are new, and today I'll be going over kind of my final look core play video for tomorrow's NFL Sunday slate here on DraftKings, the main slate. 10 games, $1 million up top to first place. So I'll be going through my potential lineup build, kind of who I like, who I don't like, why, all that good stuff. It's gonna be a pretty quick video as it is, late Saturday afternoon, and it's a very gross slate. So I'm gonna be playing pretty light and getting pretty contrarian because I do think it should work out that way for tomorrow. But make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And let's get right into this video. So, just a quick look at the game totals and spreads. Unfortunately, that first game there, Dolphins Chiefs, it's playing in Germany, so it's not on the main slates and it's super early. So, definitely make sure to wake up for that game because it should be fantastic. But obviously, for the slate tomorrow, it's all about a very, very gross slate game. That's what the theme is, just gross, gross games. 2 out of the 10 are watchable. The rest just seem like you just don't want to watch them at all. So, hopefully, it's the opposite. Hopefully they're good games, but according to Vegas right now, it's looking like a lot of gross. Cardinals Browns 11-point spread, 38 game total. Vikings Falcons 3.5 point spread, 37.5. Seahawks Ravens, that's one of the good ones. Hopefully 6 point spread, 44. Bears Saints 8.5, 41. Bucks Texans 3 point spread, 40. Rams Packers 3.5, 38. Commanders Patriots 2.5 point spread, 41 game total. Colts Panthers 2 point spread, 44. That's an interesting one there. Giants Raiders 1.5 point spread, 37.5 game total. Cowboys Eagles 3 point spread, 47 game total. That's probably the most interesting, as you guys can see. Two good teams, and then Buffalo Bills and Bengals. Unfortunately, is Sunday Night Football, but that should be a great game there. So a lot of gross, a lot of blowout ability here. So as I mentioned, I think the main theme on the slates in terms of building your lineups is I'd say get contrarian. Get different, think outside the box. Have fun with it, and you know, I think a lot of times we kind of build towards the chalk, and there's clear cut plays. But for this slate here, there are some clear cut plays for the running back position, but for like quarterback, for like wide receiver. I think you can build some very interesting lineups, and I do think there's a chance for them to take down tomorrow. Um, like it feels obviously the safest to pay up for guys for like Lamar, Hurts, and Dak Prescott. I mean, they're all in their own league compared to the rest of the field. But I mean, what if those guys, go out and get 15, 20 fancy points, and then you guys play someone like a Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, possibly even a Bryce Young, maybe Derek Carr there, Sam Howell. I mean, all those guys have the ability to go out there and get 15 to 20 fancy points. So if they do that, and someone like Lamar, Hurts, Dak only go for 20, 25, maybe in 15. I mean, you have a way to take down the $1 million at first. I mean, I do think there's a ton of different paths we can go for quarterback for tomorrow. Obviously, the safe route is paying up for guys like Lamar or Hurts or Dak. But I think right now, I'm fine with paying down and trying to get a little bit contrarian that way because I think it's one of those things where I would not be surprised if the top quarterbacks, Lamar, uh, Hurts, and Dak all have average games, and if that happens, a guy like let's say Baker Mayfield has like a 15, 20 fancy point game, you're right there, and you're saving what $3,000 compared to the rest. Allows you to pay up for another stud or two. So I think kind of that's the route I'm going to go. I'll probably make two lineups. I'm probably going to be playing very light just because it's a very gross slate, and obviously it does not feel good rostering Baker Mayfield in one of your lineups when you can pay up for one of the studs. So I think for the sake of this video, I will make it a little bit contrarian, and I will go with I probably will go with Baker Mayfield down here at 5,200 against Houston. For the running back situation, a lot of good running back plays here. Kamara looks like the best running back play on the slate so far, just because of his opportunities running the ball as well as catching the ball. I mean, he's had the most. He's pretty much number one wide receiver on the Saints since returning after missing the first 3 games because he's just getting a ton of dump offs. As I said, I think about 3 4 weeks ago, I would not be surprised if Kamara becomes like the Josh Jacobs of last year for Derek Carr. Derek Carr loves to dump it off, and that's pretty much what we've seen. So I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back for that. I was one of the first to say that there, and it's kind of worked out that way. Where Derek Carr is just dumping everything off to him, as we saw that 14 target game. They're absolutely crazy. Saw one in week 4 there against Tampa Bay as well. So he just has a massive floor and ceiling because of that pass catching upside. So he looks fantastic there, especially against a terrible Chicago Bears D. Really like Saquon Barkley. Another team, their offensive receiving core is just absolutely depleted. They have no Darren Waller. They just moved him to IR. So I do think, even with Daniel Jones back, they'll heavily run with Saquon, who should see 15, 20 plus attempts And then he's also great out of the backfield catching the ball. So I think it's a very safe play. Offense should flow through him. Moving on down here, Josh Jacobs. I think it's a very, very solid play here. I mean, this team does seem to be re-energized with the firing of McDaniels and the hiring of what the linebacker coach was Antonio Pierce. And he had a quote. He had a few. I think it was like a 30-second, minute-long clip of him talking about how this team is run through Josh Jacobs, and I do think they're going to feed Devontae as well. So I actually really like both those guys there at their price tags. Josh Jacobs actually looks very, very solid there. I will mention Tony Pollard. I do think it's a pretty sneaky contrarian play. He has not been the most efficient. And also, everyone's kind of crapping on him on Twitter just for how, kind of bad he's been. But still, the Cowboys have had I think the highest differential in terms of, points and wins or losses in the league. I mean, let's just take a quick look. First game, they won by 40. The defense pretty much did everything for him. They did not need the offense. He still went for 22. Same thing in week 2, 30-10, still went for 20. Arizona, it was a pretty close game. He went for 18. Like, he's not, absolutely blowing out. He's not going for 25, 30 plus fantasy points, but still, 20 is not going to kill you. New England, 38-3, only 9, but still a blowout there. I mean, that's what, 3 out of the first 4 weeks, games have been absolute blowouts, and they haven't needed them. Following week, they lost 42-10. Obviously, they're not going to need them there. The following week after that, the second close game. Out of 8 games so far in the season, they've only had 2 close games. And he had 17. Obviously, did not do the best rushing the ball, but had a huge catch there, 60-yard catch there. Probably should have been a touchdown, but he did seem a little bit slow. And then the following week, they won 43-20. It was pretty much Dak and CD. So yeah, I mean, he just hasn't had that luck where he's had close games and they've been able to ride him. So I do think he's a very contrarian play there against the Philadelphia front, but still, I do think he has decent upside and he's going to be extremely low owned. Jonathan Taylor is a lock and load for me. I've been riding him the past few weeks. He's been getting more and more snaps. And then last week, for whatever reason, they just pretty much benched him in the second half. I know Zach Moss has been fantastic, but still, this dude had 95 yards in the first half. I think he got 3 yards in the second. I think he had 92 yards in the first half, got 3 in the second. They just did not use him. They pretty much benched him. People thought he was injured, but no, he was fine. They just went with Zach Moss. So I expect the same thing to happen. He'll put you off to a great game, and then they'll just ride Zach Moss. It makes no sense. Absolutely pisses me off because I have Road Taylor in DFS. I have him in 2 out of my 3 fantasy leagues. It is the most infuriating thing. Just seeing Jonathan Taylor, a fantastic back, just being handcuffed by Zach Moss. Just trade him, please. They should have just traded him. But now we're gonna get screwed the rest of the season there with Zach Moss. But once again, fantastic matchup here against the Carolina Panthers. We've seen teams absolutely dice up the Panthers on the ground. So absolutely love Jonathan Taylor there at the price tag, even with the vulture Zach Moss behind him. Moving on down here, no one else really stands out. I mean, sure, you can get to Zach Moss. I mean, he's been fantastic for them. But still, with Jonathan Taylor back, he hasn't had like too high of a ceiling there. Moving on down here, I don't mind Rashad right there. I talked about him in that, I think it was a Thursday night matchup there against Buffalo. Has not been the most efficient running the ball, but he should see a decent amount of targets out of the backfield. Had a great receiving game there, 7 targets, 7 catches for 70 yards. And the coach talked about how they did like getting him the receiving role out of the backfield there because they do think he's pretty solid. So I think he's a solid play there. Moving on down here, Jerome Ford should reclaim the backfield here, but they do have Kareem Hunt, Pierre Strong look decent, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they said a couple weeks ago it's Jerome Ford's backfield, but still, it could be one of those things where you get screwed by Kareem Hunt and Pierre Strong. So I think it's contrarian, but I do think it's a decent option to land on Ford. Moving on down here, it seems like it's Chuba's team. Not really sure what's going on with the running back situation here if they paid Miles Sanders, but it seems like it's Chuba Hubbard's team. Chuba, whatever you want to call him. I think we should call him Chuba. But yeah, I mean, he saw 15 attempts, was terrible. I think he had 3 different possessions where he had goal line work and he just got absolutely stuffed. So he could have had a monster game there against Houston, but he ended up getting stuffed at the goal line multiple times and kind of limited his upside there. But he's not going to get a ton of catches out of the backfield, but he still can. But I like the rushing attempts there against Indiana, a team that's given up a ton of points. So right now, I'm going to ride with him. Go with a little bit contrarian, double running back stack there in that game. Moving on down here for the running back situation, not a ton here in terms of value that I love. We could get to Darrell Henderson there if there is no Stafford. They should lean on him. He's been decent. But otherwise, I mean, there's nothing too crazy down here. Did I miss? Where is I'm sorry, where I miss Bijan Robinson. Absolutely love him here against Minnesota. I mean, they've just been absolutely so screwy. Another team that's just been absolutely so screwy with the usage, just like Jonathan Taylor. But the Falcons, yeah, there's just an absolute headache here with the Bijan Robinson usage, but still, absolutely love him here at this price tag. We know the upside's there. I saw 5 targets once again, so he's seen a ton of targets out of the backfield. Should hopefully see close to 15 rushing attempts. I mean, one of these days, Arthur Smith is going to realize the kind of talent that Bijan is and going to give him the proper workload. So I'm going to throw him in there as the third running back for right now. But that's really it there for the board for the running back situation. For the wide receiver situation here, obviously AJ Brown has been fantastic. I mean, not much else to say there. If you want to continue to ride the streak with him, I do think there's a regression game coming for him though. Moving on to Cup, only viable if there's Stafford. If there's no Stafford, really no need to get to him. CeeDee Lamb had a great game there last game. I think he's a fine play. Devontae Adams, I actually really like him. Even with Aiden O'Connell, we saw that game against the Bears. He still got 12, or excuse me, I think it was against New England. But I expect them to absolutely pepper him. I mean, Antonio Pierce is probably going to give him and Josh Jacobs the ball the whole game. So I do have a good amount of interest in him, even with the rookie quarterback Aiden O'Connell throwing it to him. I think Thielen's fine play. I mean, he's just getting absolutely peppered with targets. So not much else to say there. Moving on down here, I think Evans is fine, but I do think I'd rather get to Godwin there as the kind of the pair with Baker. Smith, I wouldn't mind taking a shot on him. I took a shot on him last game. He was pretty solid there, 23 fantasy points. And if you expect a regression for AJ Brown, it would make more sense, to go to Devontae Smith there at 7,100. Don't love the price tag, but still pretty solid. Chris Godwin, just a staple of just consistency here. Going to see from 12 to 7 to 12 targets. He's going to catch most of them, and does have the ability to get a touchdown. So I just really like him here. Hasn't had like a huge pop off game, but still very very consistent, very very solid there. I'm going to pair him up with that Baker Mayfield stack. Moving on down here, I mean nothing too crazy stands out. I mean Pittman there with if you want to go to Gardner Minshew throwing it to Pittman, I don't mind that there. Moving on down a little bit more here, I do like Chris Olave a lot versus the Bears. Obviously, the Bears have Jalen Johnson, very good corner, but still, Chris Olave has seen a good amount of targets and just really hasn't had like a breakout explosion game in the past few weeks. So really like him there. I don't mind Amari if you do think Deshaun Watson is able to throw the ball and his shoulder's not really messing with him. Uh, don't mind DJ Moore there. It's just one of those things. Don't know if he got a target in the second half there. So the Bears are still really screwy there with no Justin Fields throwing him the ball. It could be a Nico Collins week. If you want to pair him with CJ Stroud, don't mind that. Moving on down here a little bit more. Do like Tank Dell there. 5,300. A guy who had a few explosion games there at the beginning of the season. Got hurt with a concussion, missed a few games. I do like Josh Downs a good amount. He's been heavily targeted by Gardner Minshew. So if he's good to go, I do really like him there, 5,200. So I don't mind paying a little bit cheaper here for the wide receivers just because we do have a good amount of options that are seeing a ton of work. So right now, I do think I'm going to throw in both Tank Dell and Downs to fill out kind of the wide receiver room. And then for the tight end situation here, obviously Mark Andrews is clear and by far the best tight end spend up, kind of in the league of his own. I don't feel safe going to Hawkinson there with no more Kirk Cousins. I would rather wait and see kind of what the situation will be like with the quarterbacks. Hopefully they start Josh Dobbs soon because I don't know if Hall or whatever his name is going to be the best in terms of fantasy for these guys like Hawkinson and Addison. Goddard, I think is a very strong play here, especially if there's going to be a regression of AJ Brown. Sure, it could affect the whole team, but still, I do think guys like Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert should step up. So I do really like him there at that price tag, and I do want at least one piece from that Dallas Philadelphia game. Taysom Hill, I mean, we know he's going to come in, especially near the goal line, have some weird stuff. I mean, he scored a touchdown in 2 out of the past 3 games there. So I guess he's a fine play, 4,700. Don't love it. I don't mind Schultz there. So I still really like CJ Stroud stack if you want to go that route. But I do like the little bit cheaper price tag on Baker. But that's kind of the thing there is like, Stroud and those receivers, they're all pretty cheap. Baker's very cheap. The receivers are a little bit, more pricey just because they're a little bit better and more consistent. So I do think it's kind of a split thing there. And then for the tight end situation, I pretty much just like paying for uh, Andrews, Goddard, and then paying down for a guy like Ferguson, who should be pretty heavily involved here in this passing game for the Cowboys. Been very, very solid for them. Kind of filling in for Dalton Schultz last year. We know Dak likes his tight end, so really like him there. Njoku's been kind of sneaky the past few weeks in terms of targets, seeing a good amount. And that's really it here. Nothing else is really standing out to me. If you land on any of these guys, fine. I will mention Jawan Johnson. He always seems to have some solid games. Hasn't had anything yet. He was hurt for a bit, so maybe he starts getting into the gear of things here. But still, not much for me to like here for the Titan situation. As I mentioned, probably Njoku down there. Ferguson, I do like a good amount. I really like Goddard and really like Andrews. So right now I'm throwing Goddard. And then that leaves us with 5,000 left over for the defense situation. And there's a lot of defenses to like. Obviously, the Browns going against the backup quarterback there. Don't even remember his name. Some absolute chub. So he looks great. Obviously, the Saints defense going against Bayesian looks fantastic. I don't really like the Bucks D or even the Cowboys D right now. Moving on down here, the Falcons D going against the was it Hall or whatever the Minnesota quarterback is now. Falcons D has actually been pretty solid. They don't give up a ton of points here, so they look really solid. So I like paying up for these defenses this week. Um, we do have moving on down here. Trying to see if there's anything else that sticks out. The Packers defense, I really like them here. The Rams playing at Green Bay. If there is no Stafford, I really like the Packers defense here. They're still really good defense. It's just their offense has been terrible. So the defense has been out there a ton, thus letting them not be as good, giving up a few more points than they should. But still, if there's no Stafford, I am locking and loading in that Packers defense. So I'm just going to go with that for now. Just assume, obviously, we have to stay updated with the news. But I'm going to assume, Stafford misses. If he doesn't, obviously, pay up for, I'd say my favorite would be probably the Browns there as well as the Saints. But still, I think the Falcons is a pretty solid play. But right now, let's just assume Stafford's out once again. Make sure he's not before these games start. Stay updated with the news. But right now, really like the Green Bay defense there at Lambeau if there's no Stafford. And that leaves us with 2,200 left over. So it's like we could pay up a quarterback here. We could just do a little Dak and I didn't throw. You could switch Goddard out with Ferguson and you go a little bit Dak Ferguson there. Wouldn't mind that. Obviously, you could switch to Stroud and Tank Dell. So there's a few different options. I do think I'm just going to keep Baker for now. We could switch off Chuba, 7,200 left over. Allows us to get to, we can get to Josh Jacobs there, which I don't mind. I think that's pretty solid there. Tony Pollard, if you want to get a little bit contrarian. But if we put Chuba back in here, we can pay up for a different wide receiver. So it's like, maybe you don't want Tank Dell there against, Tampa Bay. 7,500 left over. Allows us to get to Thielen, the guy who's been seeing a ton of targets there. I mean, it allows us to pay up for Mike Evans if you want to do a double stack with Baker and Chris Godwin. Devontae Smith there is a nice bring back. But then, we'd have Goddard and Smith. It'd make, sense to get to Jalen Hurts if you want to do that. But it allows you to pay up for kind of whoever you want there. If you get to Chris Olave there against the Bears, don't mind that. Especially if you're not going to Alvin Kamara, it makes sense to probably get to Chris Olave. So I don't mind doing that there. I think I'm going to ride with that for now. Obviously, 1,200 left over. So it allows you to kind of spin up wherever you want there, kind of upgrade in different parts. So yeah, this is kind of the kind of final look core play video for me tomorrow. So make sure you guys hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.